I'm Ryan.
I'm Andrea.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Kenzie.
And
this is our project. Kids these days.
Okay, boomer.
Our psychological construct we attempted to measure was social media addiction. We conceptually define this as a psychological or behavioral dependence on a social media platform.
What does the literature say?
Recently, many studies have looked into the negative side of the internet. The internet is highly stimulating and reinforcing, causing it to be easily abused and overused. Evidence of low academic performance, poor quality of life, strain on social relationships, lack of concentration, and negative outcomes in home life and work life have all been associated with social networking sites. Some assessments already exist for measuring social media addiction. Specifically, the Social Network Addiction Scale was created in 2019 in Turkey. Questions were based on salience, mood modification, tolerance, withdrawal symptoms, conflict, and relapse, as these were all found to be the main components of addiction. However, it was only able to accurately measure 5 out of these 6 components. Recent studies have looked into the role of social regulation and addictive symptoms interacting with social media addiction. It has been found that one important mediator is self-regulation, specifically social self-regulation. Individuals with high self-regulation who can reflect on their behavior and are able to control this behavior even when facing social pressure are less likely to experience addiction symptoms. Addiction symptoms are positively correlated with social media usage. The more one uses social media, the more addiction symptoms one displays. These addiction symptoms include conflict, withdrawal, relapse and reinstatement, mood modification, tolerance, and behavior salience. Sometimes internet addiction can lead to other mental illnesses, while other times underlying mental illnesses can manifest themselves into an internet addiction as a way to cope. There are some challenges of researching social media usage as smartphones are able to do more and more things. Their usage is socially acceptable as it is incorporated into daily life, and this causes some behavior measurements to be hidden or maybe inaccurate. With higher usage, more people are also doing passive usage, which includes things such as using your phone as a GPS, watching TV, or listening to music. And so this can affect how researchers measure addiction by looking at either passive or active, and most researchers want to look at active because that is when users are interacting with their phones. Many people use the internet and social media, but this does not mean that everyone will develop a dependency or addiction. Certain risk factors such as impulsivity, low self-esteem, deficits in social skills, and how well a person is able to regulate their mood are risk factors that make one more susceptible to developing an addiction. In addition, there are also protective factors including family cohesion, parenting attitude, and communication skills.
Excuse me, do you have time to take a quick survey?
Sorry, no.
Are you sure? We need as many participants as possible.
Yeah, I gotta get to class.
Please,
No.
Okay. Excuse me, do you have time to take a quick survey for me?
I'm kind of busy right now.
Are you sure? It's a couple minutes. I can send you the link on Snap, and then if you send me a screenshot, I can give you a cookie.
Snapchat? A free cookie? I'm in.
Our survey consisted of 29 questions used to gauge people's social media addiction on a continuum. Most of the questions we used a Likert scale with 5 different options. One of the different type of options we used were never, less than half the time, about half the time, and more than half the time. And statements that these would go along with are, I use social media while I am clocked in at work, and I lose track of time while I'm on social media. And then another Likert scale we used was never, very little, somewhat, a lot, and always. And these would go along with statements such as, I take breaks from social media, and I compare myself to others on social media. Not all of our questions on the survey had to do with social media addiction. Some of it was demographic information, such as ethnicity and age, although people were able to complete the survey without answering those questions if they didn't wish to. We also had questions specified towards iPhone users because the phones have a special setting that'll show you the amount of screen time you spend per week and per day, and you can also see how much time you spend on certain apps such as social media apps. So we were just hoping for more specific information.
Hey Kenzie, I'm trying to take your survey, but I don't really know how to check my screen time and stuff.
Sure, I'll show you how. So you go to your settings and you press screen time, and then you can check all your data right on the screen.
Oh, awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Our examinees were given the following message as their detailed set of directions prior to taking the survey. The purpose of this study is to measure social media addiction. Your responses are a very important part of this project, and it is important to complete the survey to the best of your ability. This brief online survey should take no more than 10 minutes. By completing the survey, you are providing voluntary informed consent. You have the right to end participation at any time, or you may refuse to answer any question. By clicking the arrows to move on to the next page, you are consenting to participating in this study. All data and identifiers of research participants will remain strictly confidential. Thank you very much for your time and cooperation. After demographic questions, we gave the following directions to participants if they had previously responded that they own an iPhone. If you have an iPhone, please go into your phone settings, select screen time, then select see all activity, then click week category at the top of the page. Use this data to help answer the following questions. Please report answers as accurate as possible. These directions allow participants to respond with more accurate answers instead of relying solely on personal reflection.
Don't forget the 3.
The different Likert scales we use for scoring exist on a continuum of social media addiction. A low score for most scales would indicate a lesser degree or no addiction to social media, and most scores that were high would indicate a larger degree of social media addiction. The reason I said most scores is because we did have 7 different questions that were reverse scored. So a low score on the reverse scored question would indicate high level of social media addiction, and a high score on these questions would indicate a low level of social media addiction. For scoring, we only used our questions that were on Likert scales. None of the demographic information or the specific iPhone data was used for measuring.
Oh, hey, I have about 10 minutes of free time. I should take that survey. Let me just put my phone on Do Not Disturb. All right, I'm in a quiet location. Let's do this.
For our test administration procedures, we noted that participants should take this assessment individually in a quiet setting with limited distractions. The scale is self-administered, and participants should reflect on their own behaviors and attitudes in order to answer the questions honestly. Participants should use their phone as a resource to respond to questions with higher accuracy. However, participants should only look at their settings and not be distracted with other notifications or other applications on their phone. This survey should take approximately 5 to 10 minutes. Our survey was administered through Qualtrics, an online survey tool. Participants took the survey using an anonymous link that was distributed through several social media platforms, including Snapchat and Facebook.
All right, let's see what our Chromebook alpha is. Wait, 0.13?
This can't be! I hate my life!
Are you actually kidding me?
Let me take a look. You guys shouldn't have added that question. Try taking it out.
Oh my gosh.
Yes! 0.848!
Dr. B says to the rest of the class,
Take that, suckers.
For assessing the reliability of our scale, the first thing that we did before anything was just cleaned up our data. First thing that we looked at was if any responses had missing questions or just weren't 100% complete. That got rid of a chunk of our data. So that was the first thing we did. And then the second thing that we looked at was time. So if they were under 5 minutes or over 10, we removed them just because we thought that was too short and also too long of a time to complete our survey. We also did have one individual who answered a question completely incorrect, so we decided to remove their data as well. So after all of that, that brought our data down to 113 participants. And so from there, we took the questions that were the Likert type scale questions, so 47, 42, 21, and 16, to analyze our reliability. And that gave us a Chromebook Alpha score of 0.848. From here, we looked at the what if scores for removing questions, but we decided that removing any of them didn't really increase our alpha that much, bringing it up to a maximum, I believe, of like 0.865. So it wasn't a huge increase. So we decided to keep all the questions and keep our Chromebook Alpha the same as it was originally scored.
Convergent validity, when two assessments collide.
For assessing the validity of our scale, what we did was we used convergent validity to compare our scale to an already established scale that is used. So what we did was we found a measurement titled Internet Addiction Test, which had different questions relating to the same construct that we were measuring. So how often do you find that you stay online longer than you intended? How often do you form new relationships with fellow online users? Different things like that. And we ran the reliability of both scores. So as previously mentioned, our alpha was 0.848. And when we ran the reliability of this established scale, we found a Chromebook Alpha score of 0.895. We ran a correlation between the two and found a score of 0.774. And this is a significant correlation, and it demonstrates that there is a high convergent validity between the two assessments, and that our scale is in fact a valid scale.
Are you guys addicted to your phones or something? It's such nice weather outside. You should go outside. Let me take that.
What? No, give that back. I need that.
You don't need this.
Yes, we do.
For our scales application, we noted that our scale is very applicable to the real world as more and more people are using the internet each day. Results are for personal use to compare how much your life revolves around social media in comparison to others. It may indicate an addiction to social media or just point out how likely you are to proceed towards a potential social media addiction. Results should be interpreted as a personal awareness, not a technical diagnosis. Eventually, this assessment could be used in clinical settings to diagnose addiction if social media addiction is included in a new version of the DSM. Additionally, this scale can be used in several environments as a preventative measure. School, family, and peer environments can use this scale for prevention and intervention as these environments are heavily influential. If we learn about it early and monitor usage, we may be able to prevent and help control social media addiction.
Thanks for watching. Peace out, Dr. B.